So in today's video I've got my next week of the 365 Days of Art challenge, so if you want to see that then keep on watching. So the first one that I chose to do this time was just simply colouring in these little dots. I suppose you really could have done these with coloured pencils, which I did consider doing, but I thought that it would be more vibrant and more bold if I used watercolour. So I started off with a red and then just kind of picked and chose, is that the right saying? Yeah, different colours as I went. I was going to do it as sort of like a rainbow gradient, but then I decided no, I'll just do this one as like a random little dots. So yeah, as you can see, I just kind of randomly just picked ones just to kind of separate the colours a little bit, rather than actually doing a gradient. But I was going to start over in like the top left hand corner with like red and then have like a rainbow gradient. But yeah, like I said, I decided against doing that. But I had fun with mixing different colours for this. A lot of the colours did end up kind of repeating, but that's okay. I just thought it looked quite cool like that. So yeah, there wasn't too many variations of colour, but that's where I ended up with this one, and overall I do actually really like this one in the end. So the next one that I went for was continuing this pattern. I started to do it and then realised that I'd actually done it wrong, but yeah, the pattern in the first place actually looked like watercolour, so I carried it on with watercolour, but yeah, as you can see here, I actually carried it on completely wrong, because there should have been, the second ones that I did, there should have been one blocked in and one outline, and then the following one should have been one blocked in and one outline, but I realised at this point that I had in fact done that wrong. So you can see me here just kind of colour matching the original colours, and I just filled those in as well. I do think it probably would have been a little bit more effective overall if I had managed to actually look at the pattern and continue it on as it was supposed to be, but yeah, I do actually like this one anyway, but I do think if I'd still had some that were outlined and some that weren't, then, or some that were filled in, then it would have made it even more interesting. That is okay, because yeah, like I said, I do actually like this one overall anyway. So I just kind of, again for this one, just picked some random colours and kind of went with them, just sort of carried on the top two lines that were already there, whilst I was doing the next lot of lines as well. I just thought, number one, it would get it done a bit quicker, and it would also probably make the colours a little bit more random than if I had done it line by line, because obviously you can then plan further down the paper, rather than doing it all right next to each other. And it also meant that I didn't have to keep mixing like the same colour. I could just use one colour that I'd mixed together and then just kind of put it in a couple spaces, and then I wouldn't have to worry about mixing too many together. But for this one I did end up mixing quite a lot of colours, as you can probably imagine, because I kind of exhausted all of my options that were pre-mixed or there anyway in the palette. I did go back through and use some of the same colours again, obviously I kind of had to, there was sort of limited options that I had for this one, but yeah, obviously you can just see that I just work it down the page. But yeah, I really like this one as well, another watercolour one. So last week we had a lot of pen ones, and this week, as you will see, we've got a lot of watercolour in this one. So yeah, so this next one that I did was actually a little bit random. I think the prompt was something like name 3 places that you would want to go and why. So the first place I chose was Iceland to see the Northern Lights, and then the second place was New York at Christmas, which I'm sure most people can agree would be great to do. And it was really difficult for me to think of a third, to be honest. It was difficult for me to think of 2, let alone 3, but eventually I managed to come up with the idea of Canada to see Niagara Falls. Obviously there's a lot of places in Canada that you could go which are incredible, but the specific reason I would want to go to Canada is Niagara Falls. So that was the third one that I put. So the next one that I did that I have already started whilst I was rambling on about 3 places that I would want to go was this one. The prompt was just colour it in basically, but when I saw this I just thought of lavender. Obviously it's not like the exact same shape as lavender, but I just thought it reminded me of it a little bit, so I went with this purpley colour, sort of a muted purple. I know obviously lavender tends to be a little bit more purple than that, but I actually really like the look of this colour, so I did that little purple, and then as you can see me doing here, I'm just adding little green stems, and then I mixed up a darker purple, and I went back in and kind of put a little bit more purple. The amount of times I've said purple is unreal. A little bit extra purple in just for a little bit of shadow, a little bit of a gradient, just put some more colour in there. I didn't really want to overdo this one too much. I did maybe consider doing this with a darker purple pencil, but I like the idea of kind of keeping it all watercolour. So yeah, that's what I did with these, and then I tried to go in afterwards with a little bit of white highlight, but it didn't really show up too much, but I didn't really mind that anyway, because I did like, obviously the base purple that I put down was kind of like a purple wash of colour, so it wasn't really too purple in the first place, and then obviously I added in the darker purple kind of shadows anyway, so I originally went in with a white pencil which didn't show up, as you just saw, and then I went in with a little bit of white watercolour, which in some areas did show up a little bit and in others just didn't really show up at all, but yeah, that was what I did for that one, and I actually think although it was very basic, it does actually look quite effective. So this next prompt, I can't remember the exact wording of it, but it was basically add a bunch of like spirals, like squiggle type things, and I actually really liked this until I did that really tight orange one, and it basically made me hate it, and that green one made me hate it even more. I think if I'd kept it as pastels, which I'm sure a lot of people can agree, if I'd kept it as pastels it would have been a lot better, but I kind of kept adding and then just thought no, just leave it, because there's no redeeming this. It looks horrible and it's going to stay looking horrible. So yeah, I kind of left that one where it was because I wasn't very happy with it, and I just thought the more and more I add, the worse it's going to get. So that was that one. This next one was yet again another watercolour one. As you can see, I've already started it. Basically just had to follow on the pattern, which was just a bunch of different coloured V's. So again, as you can see, as I'm mixing each colour or using each colour, I'm kind of putting it in a couple different places, just, you know, to kind of make sure that they're being used, each colour is being used throughout, and to also get it done a little bit quicker. Obviously these prompts are to be used each day, but not every day do you have hours to spend on one, so I think this literally took me like 20 minutes to do maybe, based on the fact that obviously I was reusing the colours and kind of using them more than once in one go, if that makes sense. Obviously you can see what I'm doing. So yeah, it definitely helped me get it done a little bit quicker, and it helped to add a little bit of consistency throughout. Obviously because there are multiple V's of the same colour, it just added a little bit of I don't know the word, sort of, you know, keeping it all linked together, if that makes sense. So yeah, the next one I did was this one, which again I can't exactly remember the wording and I can't see it on the video either, but it was basically like put the rays of sun onto the page, like do they fill the whole page or can you only see part of them, but I decided to fill the whole page with it, and have it kind of you know, sort of like big block colour rays of sunlight. Obviously I've done some lines as you can see, but I've done some much larger ones, kind of on a diagonal, so they get bigger as they go out. I just thought this would be the most effective, and when I first got this book and I saw this page, this was the first I did jumped to my mind, so I decided to just go with this still. But I really wanted to do this one because I wanted to do it in watercolour, and obviously this week I've used a lot of watercolour, so I thought this week would be the perfect week to kind of incorporate this one. So yeah, I didn't really know what I was going to do after this point. I thought, oh, maybe I'll add a little bit of orange in, just to add some more colours in. But then after I'd done that, it still didn't really look complete, and it still just kind of looked a little bit like, oh, okay, that's done then, I guess. But I wanted it to look complete and look a little bit more finished than that. So I actually decided to use the fine liner pens that I had used last week to add a little bit more definition in. Obviously you can see here I'm adding some orange on top of the big yellow blocks to add a little bit more definition, and just a little bit of like shading. I mean, it's not really shading, it's a little bit more abstract than that. But added some little dots, and then like I said, I just grabbed one of my pens, and then on each line I just added an extra line in the middle with some dots as well, just to add a little bit of finishing touches really. I just thought this would look really cool with the fine liner mixed in with the watercolour. This is definitely my favourite one this week. Yeah, I really like this one. It's so simple but so effective at the same time. But definitely let me know what you think. But yeah, this one's definitely my favourite. And this is one of those that it came out exactly how I imagined it, which is obviously brilliant, because yeah, it'd be a bit crap if it didn't. But yeah, that was the last one that I did this week, and as you can see, I'm just filling out the tracker, and then they were all done. And it's also really satisfying to see the tracker fill up, even though it's only week 2. But yeah, that was this week. So that was this week's 365 days of art challenge. If you want to see more, make sure to like, comment and subscribe, because I'll be uploading them every week. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.